Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning to everyone in Europe. A happy welcome to the NRW Japan Fireplace WebTalk. My name is Georg Löhr. I'm the representative director of NRW Japan, and we're very pleased to have you all on this WebTalk this afternoon or in Europe this morning. Today's topic is Micro and Nanosystems Innovation in NRW, a key to COVID-19 Instant Diagnostics. In the beginning, I would shortly like to introduce our speakers today. From my side, once again, a happy welcome, a cordial welcome to our web talk. Today, maybe we start with the lady first. We have Astrid Becker from NRW Invest in Düsseldorf, as you can see in the background. And then we have Professor Dr. Karsten Seidl, who is, I assume, in Duisburg right now from Fraunhofer EMS and Duisburg-Essen University. And we have Henrik Köster, who I think is also in Düsseldorf, from the Nano Micro Werkstoffe Photonics Cluster NRW. And of course, we have Professor Tadafumi Adschiri from Sendai up north. I guess it's a bit cooler up there, but welcome to you all. And thank you so much for joining today's web talk. And I'm sure we'll have a great time together, interesting presentations, and also a good discussion as we move forward. So this is today's agenda. In the beginning, I will just give a few words of greetings, and then Ms. Becker shall talk about the Corona situation in Germany, and Mr. Köster shall talk about the cluster and key enabling technologies from NRW. This introduction will be followed by presentations from Professor Seidl, as well as from Professor Adschiri. If we have time, we will take a few questions after each presentation, and then we will move on to the open discussion at the end of the presentations. Now, NRW Japan K.K. is in Japan since 1992. We are a 100% subsidiary of NRW Invest, the economic development agency of Nordrhein-Westfalen, Germany's leading economic region. And well, our main business is promoting the location of Nordrhein-Westfalen in Germany, in the most northwestern part of Germany, and also promoting our region, Germany, as an investment location for the many, many Japanese companies which are doing business in Europe or which are planning to do business in Europe. This includes a number of startups. I like to show this picture. Many have seen it already. Startups like QD Laser or Xenoma or LPixel, others we have supported along the way. There are many others in the pipeline. And of course, we work closely with universities and others. What I have said already is written here on the right-hand side. We are a team of 4 persons, plus a number of interns. Without them, things like this web talk would not be possible. But I would like to thank everyone for the cooperation and support. So we look at the markets, and for us, markets and clients are really what is very important. We try to identify current issues, what's important in Japan, what are companies looking at, which markets are moving, which products and technologies are new and interesting, challenging, and we try to find fits on the other side and offer solutions to our clients in Japan. We do this through a number of seminars. Obviously, right now, physical seminars are not possible. We are planning a seminar for September on the topic of logistics, which will probably be a hybrid event. But we have done many Fireplace talks, and this is our fourth Fireplace talk, web talk, I must now say, in the series. A little bit about NRW, known very well, of course, through Düsseldorf as the Japanese business hub in Germany and the EU. Nordrhein-Westfalen is a strong economic state. It has the largest population in Germany. It's still by GDP and also FDI, the #1 player in Germany. We have roughly about 650 Japanese companies in our area, plus the whole infrastructure, everything you need to do business in Germany. We have a number of top companies in Nordrhein-Westfalen, big players like these you see here, but also many hidden champions, among others, some like on the right-hand side, which are directly involved in corona-related business, like MS Westphalia. They build ventilators. Reifenhauer, they build huge machines on which molten blown material can be produced. Innovatec, they also are in producing fibers for masks and so on. This is just a short example. Today we have the NRW cluster as our guest here. Mr. Köster will give a short presentation afterwards. But as you can see, we have got quite a few clusters in Nordrhein-Westfalen, some of them on the federal level, like its OWL, some of them more industry-driven, like Chemie, NRW, some of them initiated by the government. And right now, today, our partner is NRW. So the strength of Nordrhein-Westfalen is, of course, its strong innovation and research network with over 70 universities and research institutions. We are, I think, very well placed to cooperate with Japan. Big centers like the Jülich Research Center or DLR in Japan, the corresponding organization would be JAXA or Fraunhofer, which is participating today, obviously, and many other institutions. Let's move on to the presentation by Astrid Becker. And Ms. Becker, I would like to introduce her shortly. She's actually my predecessor in Japan for many years, from 2001 to 2007. And currently, after spending some time in industry, she serves as General Manager, Asia, Australia, South America. Before Corona, of course, she came to Japan on a regular basis, and I hope we will see you here soon again.
Thank you very much, and a warm greeting to Japan from Düsseldorf. About 5 months after the Corona outbreak in Germany, we thought it is a good idea to give an overview of the situation in Germany and in our state, NRW. Because the overarching title of this series of web talks, online seminars, and so on is, of course, the Corona crisis. And most of the topics are somehow linked to the Corona crisis. So before I start with the presentation about the situation in Germany and NRW, I would like to move to the next slide. This chart explains about the role of NRW Invest and NRW Japan K.K, building together a bridge for our clients from Japan to Nordrhein-Westfalen. We are all embedded in a nice network of organizations, institutions, and experts that we can make available for the needs of you, our clients. And of course, we have these networks in Japan and in NRW. The next slide shows you again what NRW Invest stands for. We want to be a partner for your successful business setup in NRW. We have a nice small team in charge of Japan. That is myself and my colleague Wolfgang Jansen, who is the head of the business unit Japan. He has a long history in supporting our Japanese clients here, is well known. NRW Invest is the state-owned economic development agency. We service for international investors. The head office is in Düsseldorf. We have 15 representative offices worldwide. Of course, NRW Japan is the one in Japan. We are now have more than 25 years of engagement in Japan already. And our main services and expertise for foreign companies that many of you could hopefully experience so far already is the business information and advice regarding setup of business in NRW and the business framework and environment, consulting and support for relocation and settlement. Of course, we support the networking in business science and in public administration, which should not be underestimated. And we also give consultations on options for receiving incentives and funding. So these are our main jobs. And of course, we collaborate with our foreign representatives in organizing and planning such kind of events as today. So, having said that, I would like to proceed to the corona situation in Germany and NRW, and this slide gives you a short overview what happened so far. So end of January, we saw the first cases in Bavaria by travelers from China, and this somehow raised the attention to the pandemic as a real and immediate threat for Germany as well. Until then, we had received it rather via TV as something that is happening far away. We saw since then a quick worsening of the situation in Europe, especially in Italy, followed by Spain and France. And in the end of February, we actually had a first bigger outbreak in Germany, close to here in the region of Heinsberg, a communal district here close by, which caused a regional lockdown. And this put German authorities really on higher alert. Larger companies in NRW at that time started immediately executing their pandemic plans and required their employees to work as much as possible from home. And I think that was a really good move in order to control the situation. Since March 13th, then, the government of NRW, in coordination with the national government, put anti-corona measures in place, which focus on the restrictions of public life and social distancing, including shutdowns. And at the same time, measures to strengthen the medical health care system were introduced, as well as financial support framework for companies, especially small companies and self-employed persons. It was called Immediate Aid Program to reduce the risk that they faced through the corona crisis. We had a peak of the actual new infections per day in April 5th, and then steadily the number of new infections declined in Germany and in NRW, and is now quite stable at the beginning of June, and where we had a reproduction value of under 1, which is of course desirable. Unfortunately, due to the start of the summer holiday season and people getting a little bit more lax on the anti-corona measures discipline, we have now a rise, and the reproduction value is at 1.22. That means that one person infects in average more than one other person. This is a threat to keeping the pandemic under control, but at the moment everything is quite stable in Germany still. And if we move to the next slide, we see in this chart, which I took from July 29th, illustrating the development of the infection and the corona crisis. The orange part shows you the acute cases, and you see that we had this peak in on April 5th in Germany, and since then we had a steady decrease, with now turning out to be quite stable at the end. Also, the accumulated number of all infected persons is stabilizing out, only a small rise, and also the fatalities have stabilized to a certain degree throughout Germany. At the moment, we have an infection rate of 4.5 people per 100,000 inhabitants in 7 days. And the next slide shows you the data for NRW. You can see that the development in NRW took the same scheme, the same direction. We see here at the end of June a peak. This was the outbreak in a meat factory that was, I think, also in the news in Japan. But also through lockdown activities, this could be put under control quite quickly, and the situation is stabilizing and leveling out. Due to this situation at the end of June, we have now, all in all, an infection rate of 8.2 persons per 100 inhabitants within a week. So now what is in addition interesting to everybody is, of course, the impact of the business situation in Germany, and looking into the future is always a guesswork. So what I took here is basically a chart based on the statistic of our famous IFO Institute for Economic Data, and it is published on the website of the NRW Entrepreneurs Association Unternehmer NRW. This chart shows you, first of all, with the red line, the perceived business climate. You see the quick drop down here in the beginning of 2020 in March. But right shortly afterwards, do you see also a rise again? Not only in the business climate, but also in the evaluation of the business situation, and in the rise of business expectations on the entrepreneur side. It has not risen, of course, back to the 100% in 2016, but it seems that at the moment it is on a good way. Unfortunately, these statistics cannot be delivered frequently, so we have here to rely on the result of end of June 2020. The next slide gives you another perspective. It regards in the dark blue line the recovery in all sectors throughout Germany. Then the red dotted line is the production industry. Gray one is the services industry. The red line without interruption is trade and retail, and the black line is the construction sector. Of course, the construction sector in many areas could just continue to work throughout the crisis, which was very helpful for the overall economic situation. But all in all, after April 2020, our entrepreneurs estimate an upward development again. Hoped obviously that the zero level would be regained maybe in July. We will have to see if that really happened. But in general, the perspective and the expectations were positive, or a little bit positive, let us say that. So moving to the next slide, I prepared An information about the second program, Help Measures for Business, the so-called Überbrückungshilfe bridging aid by the German government. And of course, on German websites, it's all in German. Therefore, I put kind of the essential key points within the differently colored frames on the right-hand side of this slide. First of all, this program is a federal program for companies and self-employed persons to bridge the negative business impact of the corona pandemic. For undertakings, it is meant for undertakings located in Germany and registered at a German tax office. This includes subsidiaries of foreign companies. Contrary to the first immediate aid program, companies can apply for this aid only through certified tax advisors, auditors, and sworn accountants. This is, of course, in order to prevent fraud and also help to make the registration and the application quick and smooth. And also, there has to be proven that a severe business downturn or threat is caused actually by the corona crisis, and therefore there are certain dates indicated before which the company should have been healthy. The yellow framework explains an additional program initiated by NRW state, which is called Bridging Aid Plus. It focuses or aims at self-employed persons or owners of companies with maximum 50 employees, and is meant also not only for their cost of their keeping their company running, but also for their personal life. It is support for maximum 3 months. This does not include companies with foreign parents, but it includes, of course, foreigners who are owners of a company in Germany by themselves. And some of our clients, of course, also fall into this group. That's why I explain it here. The light blue frame then explains how the support amount applicable is calculated. If you are interested in that for your own company, then it is maybe good that you just run through this calculation scheme with your tax accountant or auditor or sworn-in accountant. Yeah, the corona situation in Germany. Of course, travel restrictions are becoming more and more a problem for many people, and I therefore have compiled information about the current situation. We have seen that the entry into EU countries was restricted completely until June 21st. And since then, first of all, the travel to Germany from other EU states, the Schengen area or United Kingdom has been possible without restriction. After that, we have now seen also a relaxation of entry restrictions for third countries, which have been decided by the Council of the European Union. And Germany has implemented these recommendations from July 2nd on. Following this decision, we now have a list of countries without travel restrictions. Among this list, based on the low rate of infections, you can find also China, Japan, and South Korea. But in order to really lift all restrictions, these 3 countries are requested to confirm reciprocity, means that they also lift their entry restrictions for travelers from Germany. This situation is currently under negotiation between the two governments, for example, Germany and Japan. However, until these negotiations come to a success, we can see on the next slide travel conditions that apply already from third countries to Germany. So for countries that are not on the list of without travel restrictions. So it is possible to travel to Germany for certain purposes. And I have here marked in blue the groups which are maybe most important for Japan: third country nationals with a valid residence permit for Germany, family members of third country nationals traveling to Germany, healthcare professionals, but maybe most of all, foreign experts and highly qualified personnel whose work is necessary from an economic point of view and which cannot be postponed or carried out. Now, this is defined, as you can see in the next slide. The definitions, who falls under this definition? First of all, skilled workers, scientists, and managers and IT specialists and employees with an employment of significant public interest. You can apply for entry if you can prove that one of these applies to you, and you need, as proof, you need, for example, to present a job contract or a certificate by your employer or contract award in Germany that it is really necessary that you enter Germany. And the relevant documentation is then to be carried during travel and presented during the border checks if requested. For Japanese residents also the following applies, which I marked in fat black: persons who do not apply to the German diplomatic representation abroad for a visa for immediate commencement of their employment and instead acquire their residence permit after entering Germany. This was normally the case for Japanese people. So in order to combine the two possibilities, it is actually recommended by the German Ministry for National Affairs, the Innenministerium, that you, together with the Foreign Office, apply at your German diplomatic representation, which is the German embassy in Tokyo, to certificate the eligibility for your urgent visit and your entry based on the documentations that you receive from the employer. And now, nowadays, if you have all this together, you can travel to Germany and you can enter. And up to now, there has been nobody at the border, for example, in Frankfurt, being prevented from entering the Germany, crossing the border, if he could show all these documents eligible. So this is, of course, at the moment, one possibility how Japanese citizens can enter Germany if it is really important. And I think if people have to travel and want to travel nowadays, it's always for an important reason. So that was it from my side. Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Ms. Becker. I think that was very valuable information. We see that Germany is actually handling this travel issues a bit more flexibly than Japan. Okay, then we move on. Mr. Köster, it's your turn. Of course, I have to mention that you are the head of PR and marketing at the Nano Micro Materials Photonics cluster. And as you can see, Mr. Köster has also very practical experience with business. So here you go.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, and you can go on to the next slide. And again, the next slide. So now we have, at first, I would like to start with a general introduction of clusters. A cluster is a geographical approximate group of interconnected companies and associated institutions. So it's like a network. Next slide, please. And in Nordrhein-Westfalen, the NRW state clusters were initiated by the state government with the Excellence Initiative. And what do? We try to strengthen the competitiveness and the innovativeness in NRW by linking between science and industry. And we are trying to identify emerging technologies, promote innovation and visibilities in these lead markets, and develop cross-regional and international initiatives as well. So yes, the next slide. On the bottom line, you can see all the clusters in NRW. On the top line, you can see all the lead markets. And there's one thing which is a bit special in our cluster, because most of the clusters focus on application fields. But while we, the cluster Nano, Micro, Materials, Photonics, focus on technologies, I think we have a great input and impact on all the lead markets. So this is why we have a very broad scope. And for example, health or lightweight construction, whatever. Everything what's high tech, you can contact us. Okay, so next slide, please. Yes, information about the cluster, NRW cluster, our cluster. So I think it's quite interesting to see that NRW is in case of nanotechnology, microsystems and new materials, we are still state #1 in Germany. And in photonics, we have also a very great expertise. So as I said before, we are focusing on a broad range of application fields, but healthcare, life science is definitely one of them. Yes. On the next slide, I can give you a short overview. What does it mean, nanotechnology, for example, and nanobiotechnology, nanomaterials. Energy is a very important topic, international topic, medical engineering, drug delivery, as well. Yes, on the next slide, please. You can see micro is also a very important topic, also for today's topic, life science. And I think also very important, on the next slide, you can see it's about advanced materials. And this is a more superficial topic. It has a great impact on all the other topics, also nano and micro. And as you can see, we have in North Rhine-Westphalia, we have 726 employees, 1,000 employees, about 200 billion euros volume, and over 6,000 stakeholders. And I think it's clear that approximately 70% of all innovation depend on these advanced materials, as I think Professor Seidl will approve later on. And on the last slide, photonics. I think photonics, what do you have to say about photonics? It's everywhere. So also there we have a very, very great network. Now about the cluster and the structure on the next slide. Yes, we have also an association which is in the topic which is close to us, and we have lots of synergy effects. And I just wanted to show this slide because of the next slide. As you can see, these are some of the members of the association, and some of the logos Mr. Löhr presented, like Covestro and Henkel, they're also on this slide. And we have also members, also Japanese members like Microelectric or Teijin, also in our association. But within our network, we also have contact to other companies like Mitsubishi, Canon, Hitachi. These are very important for us in the key enabling technologies. Okay, so on the next slide, you can see our claim: we enable innovation everywhere. And how do we do this? By networking. In times of Corona, we don't have any face-to-face, but we switch to digital webinars. And very important for us, because we're not developing by our own, we provide information. Also, we initiate projects, and we are active in strategy processes, and give also advice to the European Commission and also to the state, to the federal states. So in the last slide, I can show you how can we be of service for you. So I think we can give you strategic consultation, and we can support you for setting up technology-driven corporations and businesses if you want. We can give you access to our network from partners from NRW. We can give you a bit of guidance in the Nordrhein-Westfalia's economic research and the research landscape. And as Mr. Löhr also already mentioned, we have a very big research landscape. I think there's a lot of things going on, and yes, we can give advice on possibilities in North Rhine-Westphalia, and we can link to the policy community as well. So that was quick. Thank you for your attention.
Move on to Professor Seidl. In the beginning, let me just shortly introduce him to you. Professor Seidl chose Duisburg because of the Fraunhofer Institute and University of Duisburg-Essen, where he has been active since 2018. So, and before that, he took his Doctor of Engineering at University of Freiburg, and which I think is, well, in a way typical for people working at Fraunhofer and also in German engineering academics. He spent several years working for Robert Bosch and also was actively involved in the development of the systems, type of systems we are talking about today. Professor Seidl, now the show is yours.
So thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation to this Fireplace WebTalk.
Yeah.
Welcome and good morning to Europe, and good evening to Japan. It's really a pleasure that I can give you an overview about our work. I will focus in my short talk about our smart sensory approaches for COVID-19 Instant Diagnostics. So I will give you mainly three topics. We focus on contactless measurement for fast isolation of COVID patients. We work on biosensor systems for direct detection of the RNA of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And we also work on hygiene measures for improving the hygiene, for example, in the clinic. So first of all, I want to give you an introduction where I'm working. I'm currently located at the Fraunhofer IMS. I'm sitting here in Duisburg. The Institute for Microelectronic Circuits and Systems, IMS, has a quite long history. It was founded in 1984 and in Duisburg in 85. We have 250 employees and a budget of 33 million euros. And we are focusing here at our institute at smart sensor systems for different applications. Like also Mr. Köster mentioned, when you work on sensor systems, you can apply them in health, in mobility, industry, and also in space and security applications. And we are developing these sensors, these little sensors that everybody now knows from your mobile phones. We are designing these integrated circuits, semiconductor technologies, and also wireless transponder systems for those sensors. We have here at our institute also the facilities to fabricate those sensors. So these are microelectronic circuits on so-called wafers, and our technology is a 350 nanometer technology, and we are here fabricating in all 24 hours, 7 days. But the future of these these microelectronics is the sensor capability. So we add at these microelectronic circuits certain features, for example, optical, mechanical, and chemical features that at the end you have a sensor element. I'm responsible for the business field health, and we are building smart sensor systems for medical implants, for diagnostics, so-called in situ diagnostics. I will explain this later, and for contactless and body near sensing. So one of our specialty are implanted pressure sensors. For example, we implant pressure sensors in the eye, in the brain, or in the heart. Together with our customers, of course, we are at Fraunhofer closely related to industry. So we are building or developing customer-specific solutions. And as Mr. Löhr said, I'm located at the University of Duisburg-Essen, where we have the engineering studying program, especially also medical engineering. And there I'm a professor for Micro and Nanosystems for medical applications. So here's also a few impressions also shown what we are working on. We are working on really tiny systems where we, for example, could penetrate even single cells. So as you can imagine, when you move to smaller sizes, so in a size of a hair or even less, then you need appropriate materials and technology to address these issues, this sensing technology field. So, and in my talk, I will give you an overview, just a few impressions where we worked during the last months to address the coronavirus. We have, as I mentioned, 3 topics. We first of all would like to, or we develop contactless measurement systems to have a fast isolation of patients with possible infections. Second, we work on hygiene systems to support assistance systems for improved hygiene. And third of all, we work directly on rapid testing systems of the coronavirus. So in here it's shown our approach of contactless measurement of vital parameters. We are detecting using a normal RGB camera. We are detecting the respiration rate of a patient. So I will show you here. So the system consists of a camera and then, of course, a little display, a software where we then extract features of a patient. So we extract the head and then a location along the chest. And we have then, we identify features that we monitor. We monitor the movement of these features. And at the end, we can, after some biosignal processing, we can detect the respiration rate. I will show you here's the impression of the system. So you are sitting there or you're standing there, and the system without any contact can extract these respiration rate. We are working together with the University Clinic Essen, and we are really happy that in our environment in Nordrhein-Westfalen, we have quite a few university hospitals. And of course, they are really happy to test these systems and even to apply these systems. And so that's what we also did with this system in Essen. And of course, we could identify then things that we could improve. For example, there was the difference of different height of patients. Of course, then you had to adjust the system. So there, but the principle is working very well. So in the future, currently we are improving the system. We add additional vital parameters. For example, we are extracting the heart frequency by extraction of color information of the face, because you can then conclude on the blood circulation and extract the heart frequency. We also would like in the future to extract the oxygen saturation and the blood pressure. Of course, that's more future topics, but the vision is that we want to have a system of all vital parameters. And actually, at the end, you want to use all these vital parameters and apply intelligent algorithms that also give you a suggestion of a diagnosis. And of course, currently we're working on corona detection or corona fast isolation. But of course, these systems of vital parameter extraction can also be applied to many other diseases. So, and for example, here you can then see in real time the extracted heart frequency or heart frequency at the end, the movement of these signals. Furthermore, we have special sensors, so-called bolometers, that could or that can detect the infrared radiation. So actually these are arrays, so multiple sensing elements, a whole array of 17 micrometer sensing elements that can detect the thermal radiation. And actually, that's a really complicated process step. You can imagine when you have these 17 micrometer small systems, and so it's a quite difficult process, but we have developed this here at the institutes, and we can fabricate these sensing elements. And of course, at the moment, this is really helpful then to detect the fever, when then you also apply a reference emitter. And we are really proud that we are currently the only German supplier who can fabricate these arrays with 320 by 240 pixels, quite very good temperature resolution. It's very important to mention is those sensor elements are uncooled, so you don't need cooling systems. And yeah, so this is an additional sensing element that shows you the potential for the fast isolation of corona patients. As I mentioned, we have also developed an hygiene assistant. So we are using sensing elements that we place at the entrance of for example, a patient room or near to the bed where the patient is located. Because the problem is that due to time issues, the doctors or the nurse, they need assistance for their hygiene, washing their hands, to make sure, just as for your personal assistant, have I washed now my hand? Is everything clean? And the idea is that we monitor the entrance, and if you move from a bed to another bed, we build, using so-called Bluetooth beacons. You can detect when the nurse or the doctor is moving from a zone to a zone. And actually here you have an impression of a part of our institute. It's the in-house hospital engineering location where we directly test the developed sensor systems. So we have here a fully equipped operation room and also a patient room where we then implement our solutions, and we directly test them, and also we then test the user experience directly in a real environment. So just an impression of the developed system. I can go over this. So we developed first demonstrators, and of course also industry here also in Nordrhein-Westfalen is very interested in these solutions. So the third part is the SARS-CoV-2 testing. Just a few basic information. Here you can see, and of course you probably know this from the news, from the television, how now an virus, the coronavirus, looks like. It has actually about 30,000 nucleotides. So this means the genetic information within this virus. And when you want to detect a virus, you can use different methods. You can detect directly the genetic information, that means the RNA, but you also can detect antigens, so proteins located around the virus. And of course, also very important, I will not focus today in my talk, but of course also important is the detection of antibodies in a human body. That means you detect the immunity of a person. So in my talk, I will focus on the RNA-based tests. And just to give you an overview, the point at the moment is the detection of this virus takes quite a few steps. So first of all, you take a sample. You take a sample from the throat or the nasal swab. So then you have the genetic or the virus located on a swab. And when you want to detect or detect the virus, the genetic information, you need a few steps. So first of all, you need a purification step and an extraction of the virus. So that means there are several filtration steps. You have to crack the virus wall and to get the real RNA the RNA of the virus. The current available systems, they then add an amplification step. So you have to amplify your information that you get a stronger signal. If you just have a few RNA information, then it's not sufficient from the signal to noise level, so you have to amplify this. And of course, biotechnology companies and also research departments have developed their more and more tricky methods for this amplification, and even isothermal amplification methods and so on. So there are also a lot of research going on for these amplification steps. And at the end, you need the detection of this RNA. And for this, at the moment, the industry has a strong focus on optical methods. Of course, you can detect by several methods. You can detect electrical information of the RNA. You can detect the mass, so mechanical information, but you can also do it optically, and then you need a labeling method. So you have to label this RNA via a dye, a fluorescent or luminescent dye, and then you detect the optical information. So, and for this, when you do fluorescence, probably you know you have to excite the then the fluorescence signal, and then to detect this. Here's just an overview of this amplification step. Probably now you also, during the last weeks and months, you have heard this in the television. So you have a double helix structure of these genetic information, and when you want to amplify this, you first have to divide this so-called denaturation of the RNA or DNA, and then you add markers for then replicating these genetic information. So you always double the amount of RNA or DNA at each step. So this gives you now an overview about the currently available commercial systems. So there are a few companies, Cephite, bioMérieux, then also Abbott, a startup in Germany is SpinDiag, QIAGEN, and also Bosch, that I will show you on the next slide, that have solutions available. Yeah, and of course they want, or they allow now these many steps that usually are done in a big laboratory. They have integrated these steps in a small disposable cartridge in combination with an analyzer device. So usually you have these cartridges that are activated or activated by different methods, for example, pneumatic driven, or here it's a plunger integrated, or here it's a rotating disc. So because you want to move the fluids within this cartridge, that then allows the biochemical reactions. So all the steps that I mentioned in the slide before, you have then to integrate in these cartridges. So this is the tricky part. And of course, you can imagine that there's a lot of technology involved, down to the nanoscale, because an RNA has a diameter of a few nanometers. So you're coming from the big world outside down to the nanoscale, and this needs a lot of technology. So, as I mentioned, I worked at the previous employer, Bosch. I worked on these systems, and actually I developed this from the first ideas to the commercial system. I went through the whole cycle, and even at the end we received also the CE mark. And yeah, in spring, after the spread of the coronavirus, they could then easily adapt the system for the genetic information of the coronavirus. You could then modify the sequence on the detection element, and yeah, at the moment this system allows to detect the virus, even in a combination with also influenza and other respiratory infection diseases. And so this test needs 2.5 hours, and rapid testing is currently in the process to be placed on market this rapid test allows within 45 minutes a result. So, but if you summarize all these systems that are currently available, as I mentioned, they have a disposable cartridge. The cartridges are partly costly. They need these amplification steps. They need complex optics. And currently these tests, at least in Germany, cost up to 100 euros, and they need test times from at least half an hour to 2.5 hours. So that's the range, what we are talking about when currently we are talking about point of care systems. So, and as we mentioned in the poll, Germany wants to increase the number of the tests. We have currently a test capability of 175,000, as we heard. But of course, you would like to increase the number. And the problem is when you use big laboratories, of course, you can handle this amount, but you have a delay time of 48 hours because you first collect the material, you send it to the laboratory, and then you get the result back. So that's the issue. And these available systems that for point of care testing, they still have some disadvantages. They still take too long, they are still too expensive. So the idea is that you have more tests available that you can directly test in a special care home environment, and also directly on production sites, and also actually also on an airport. And for this, here I summarized our ideas. So what you need for the future rapid testing of, for example, coronavirus, you need a dramatic increase of the sensitivity of these detectors. So I will show you in a few slides later, we are working on very sensitive optical detectors based on single photon detection. Furthermore, you need miniaturization of the analyzer device. Currently, these devices are still quite big and expensive. And so what you need is to shrink the size of all the components. The third one is you need still improvements of the biological detection reaction. And you also want to get directly more information within this one run, for example, of the infectiousness. And third of all, there's also included fluidics, microfluidics, and also these fluidics has to be miniaturized. So here's the overview, what we think is the development. Yesterday, still, of course, it has their need, but you have big laboratories with huge machines where you can get, of course, a lot of tests done within certain time. But of course, you have the delivery time, the time where you send your sample to this laboratory. Currently, as I showed you, you have patient near testing, but at the end, the idea is to move these tests directly to a natural location close to you. So our vision is that everybody has a test system at home, in your bathroom or in your living room, or at least at the entrance of a special care house or home, or at least at an airport, or at least at the entrance of your production site. And for this here, I have summarized our approaches. We're using for the detection very sophisticated nanosensors, fluorescent nanosensors, nanoparticles that can detect or bind the the virus proteins or the virus RNA. Furthermore, we are working on this next generation very sensitive optical detectors. So detectors that can detect single photons, so-called SPADs, single photon avalanche diodes. So these are our ideas we are working on. So this is an impression about the technology behind such as SPAD. So you have a photodiode for the experts under you, which is driven under reverse biasing in Geiger mode. And then when a photon is coming, you have this avalanche, this Lawine in German, and then you can detect this signal. So our systems, our technology is then used in different applications, sensing applications. So you can detect fluorescence lifetime. You can detect these optical these optical signals of chemo and bioluminescence, and you also can do Raman spectroscopy. That's a method where you can even detect the element, the physical element or the biological element itself. So there are quite a broad applications, and so I already want to conclude. Here I summarized again our ideas, and I would be really happy to discuss the approaches, and also we are really happy also for cooperations with industry, research partners, and also clinics, etc. Because we think we can only fight against Corona within a cooperation of technology, clinics, medics, and so on. So I thank you, and I'm happy to answer quick questions about understanding, and then we will hear the next talk. And afterwards, of course, we can also discuss your ideas, your questions again. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Seidl. I think we were all very much impressed by your presentation and the exciting opportunities, but challenges also, which are involved in creating such systems from many perspectives, and bringing everything from larger size to very small size. Actually, something which Japanese are very good at.
Yes.
And yes, we would very much like you to find partners, and we are happily supporting you, be it Duisburg-Essen, Fraunhofer, or in working with partners. We have one question. Are there any regulations, guidelines for the accuracy of diagnosis? How about false negative positive percentage of in such a new system?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, because of course, there are regulations that before you can use these tests, there's a so-called IVD regulation. So of course you have to prove the claims that you have. Yeah, so you say the accuracy, so the sensitivity and specificity you have to prove within a clinical or during clinical trials. But there's no regulation what you have to achieve, but you have to achieve what you claim. And of course, this process, currently there was accelerated processes that you could achieve for example, CE mark or the CE mark in a fast track. So there are options, but you have to prove it. And of course, there's the difference, also the different system achieve different accuracies. And of course, you heard, for example, from one of those systems that then at the end they could not achieve the promised accuracy, and then of course that's really problematic. Yeah, so that's I think an issue if you don't achieve your promised accuracy.
Mizukoshi-san, are you happy with this answer? Mizukoshi-san is, I think, from Tokyo Institute of Technology, who is working, of course, closely with RWTH Aachen, but you see that also in Uni Duisburg-Essen, there are very exciting things happening. We have one discussion, one question here from HM, which says, are there any ongoing projects with Japanese partners, or in which area would you expect such cooperation in the future?
Yeah, currently we, from our Fraunhofer Institute, IMS, we don't have at the moment running projects with Japan. Of course, we had in the past. We also have, of course, a Fraunhofer Institute directly located in Japan. And we are really happy in all fields that are presented, yeah, all the three topics. So in the field of contactless, measurement, also in the rapid diagnosis, also hygiene assistant, we are happy for corporations. And I think especially Japan is very, they're working on these future topics. They are really strong in, for example, home care applications or home care systems, robotic systems, and we're really happy. And feel free to contact me again to discuss the possible cooperations.
I have here another question from Anonymous. Do you have any specific idea to commercialize remote diagnostic technologies, and which you explained in the first part of your presentation? I found it actually quite interesting that you seem to be selling chips also. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's true. So I mean, especially in the field of medical applications, there's of course the amount of sensors are less than compared to a mobile phone. So that's the issue actually. And so usually we work until the pilot phase of these sensors, and we for this pilot phase we of course fabricate also the sensors, and then it depends on the amount of sensors. Usually for example, in the field of medical implants, if you have a couple thousand sensors, that's nothing for, so that's really low amount. That's what you can fabricate along a few wafers. So that's what we easily can do. And of course, we always reflect the type of commercialization. So of course, usually we work with industry partners, and then they commercialize the solutions. And of course, also in these fields, we are working with companies, and then they have exclusivity along their specific application. But also we have we are working on spin-off, or think about spin-off companies. We actually also support these activities, and also Fraunhofer in general supports these activities. And of course, it's also possible that at the end a spin-off will come based on these technologies. Currently, it's not planned, but we are also open to discuss this.
Okay. I thank you so much for these questions and also for the answers. Just to mention it on the side, in Duisburg, you actually have a company called Shimatsu Corporation, which is also working on testing COVID-19 testing materials. We have recently compiled a study on virology, which we would be glad to share with you, and maybe we can take some hints from that also. Now we move on from Duisburg to Sendai. As you can see already in Sendai, it's a bit darker than here in Tokyo. And I welcome Professor Dr. Masahiro Yamaguchi, Vice President of Tohoku University, as well as our second keynote speaker, Professor Tadafumi Adschiri. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a very great honor for us to have Tohoku University on our web talk today. Tohoku University is, of course, one of the top universities in Japan, probably in the material science area, the leading university, maybe not only in Japan, but among the global top players. And we are very, very happy to have you and your colleagues on the web talk today. Please, dozo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loa. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate the success of the fireworks so far. I mean, I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I appreciate the presentation very much. And let me introduce Tohoku University just briefly. Our university was established more than 100 years ago as the third national university in Japan after Tokyo and Kyoto. One of the interesting points is that the model of our university is University of Göttingen.
Oh.
So it was established as a kind of German-style university, where the bottom line is the excellent education should be based on the excellent research. And our university has been strong in science and technology from the beginning, especially in material sciences. And related to the material science, I'd like to mention that there will be a new synchrotron facility, radiation facility, our campus site, which will launched in the year 2023 from 3 years from now on. This facility will have radiation of soft X-ray region with high luminosity, so it is suitable to investigate the functions of the materials. We expect a lot of application side R&D will be done, including not only the material science, but also the medical applications and so on. Another thing I'd like to mention our university is that our university has a kind of identity as a university engaged with society. This identity has been recognized strongly after the disaster of the March 11th, 2011, where the big earthquake and tsunami attacked this region. In the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic, where the university asked the faculty members about the research proposal related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we received more than 200 applications, research proposals, including the application from the material science.
And now we move on to Professor Tadafumi Adschiri. And actually, I should have shown his introductory slide, but we can move to that later. So here you see his CV. He works at the Advanced Institute for Materials Research and the Institute of Multidisciplinary Research for Advanced Materials, so right in the middle of advanced materials. And he is inventor of supercritical hydrothermal synthesis method. And at the same time, he's also the CTO of a startup company called Super Nano Design. He's received many awards from MEXT, Society of Chemical Engineers, and Japan Chemical Society, and was also awarded the medal with purple ribbon from the Cabinet Office, Government of Japan. Originally, he studied at University of Tokyo, where he got an engineering doctor in engineering.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introductions. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here to give these lectures to you in firework seminars. Honestly speaking, we have not done any researches on the COVID diagnosis issues. Our research is more on the nanotechnologies. But we have some collaborators, some researchers in the Tohoku universities whose research is closely related to the COVID-19 diagnosis. So today I'd like to introduce those researches in addition to our research. It was introduced that our main research topic is supercritical fluid technologies, especially for the nanoparticles. But always for making the new technologies, the combination of the two different ideas should be merged or fused, combined, so that these technologies might be correlated with your researches or business. The first is the supercritical hydrothermal synthesis. First of all, I'd like to explain this one, which was established in our institute, WPI-AIMR. In fact, this is a world premier research institute. Around 10 years ago, the Japanese government has selected only 5 research institutes in Japan. This AIMR, Advanced Institute of the Material Research, was recognized as a research centers for the new material science. We do the research of supercritical technologies in this institute. The figure shows a diagram, the phase diagram of the water. You can see that above the 374 degrees C, we cannot find any phase transition, gas and liquid. I will show you this video and how the supercritical water is formed. We increase the temperature, the evaporation takes place so that gas phase density is increased. And afterwards, you can see that now we have the homogeneous phase like this. This is the supercritical state. Very strange phenomena takes place under these conditions, which cannot be found in the liquid phase or the gas phase, even for the reactions. Even for the reaction for the nanoparticle synthesis. Well, where we can find this supercritical water on the Earth, you know the magma, the deep underground. Of course, we can find the underground water near the volcanic activities. Of course, the temperature of water is going up above 374 degrees C. That is the critical point of water, and the water becomes a supercritical water. That high temperature water dissolves the rock around there to make a supercritical aqueous solutions. If the aqueous solutions, that is actually the magma, is coming up to the surface, the temperature go down and the pressure go down, so that the solvent power of the supercritical water is reduced to make a precipitation of the mines, the ores. Sometimes we can find the crystal. If this magma is coming up rapidly to the surface, because of the rapid expansions of the supercritical water, that is the high density steam, the explosive eruption takes place like this, as you know. And the dissolved rock is precipitated rapidly. This is how the nature makes the nanoparticles. For making the nanoparticles, we can use this phenomena, right? Instead of a rapid decrease of the pressure, another way is to make the expansion is a rapid increase of the temperature. We propose this flow type system, and at this mixing point, the precursor is rapidly heated up to the supercritical state above the 374 degrees C, and rapid expansion takes place to make the nanoparticles. Okay, this is one example, but we can apply this method for the variety of the materials. We can make whatever the materials we can find on the Earth with a nano size by using the nature's method. That is the supercritical hydrothermal synthesis method for the nanoparticles. We can use these particles for the variety of the applications. You can find here some metals. Metals can be synthesized as well under these conditions. This is another example of the supercritical water on the Earth. You can see that the gases are coming out from the bottom floor of the oceans. Of course, near the volcanic activities, the temperature should be very high, above the 374 degrees C, and deep sea, so that pressure is also very high. So the supercritical water exists under these conditions. Even though the gases are coming out, we cannot see any bubbles, methane, ammonia, H2S, but we cannot see any bubbles because this is a supercritical water, high density steam. Steam can be miscible with methane and other gases. It means we can control the reducing atmosphere of the water to make the metals. In fact, this is a very strong magnetic materials, nanoparticles. Another interesting features of supercritical water conditions is a phase behavior between water and organic materials. Oil and water cannot mix together at the room temperature, but at a higher temperature range, we can make a homogeneous phase at any compositions. We have done the different researches for the organic reactions, one of which was commercialized already in Japan. And also we combine the nanoparticle synthesis method, which was also commercialized. These two approaches were mixed together. What's happened? Just after the formation of the nuclei, nanoparticles, dissolved organic species are attracted to the surface to make a kind of micelle, followed by the crystal formations. This is how the organic, inorganic hybrid materials are formed. Because only under these conditions, water and oil, organic materials can be mixed together at any compositions, so that these materials can be synthesized only under these conditions. You can see that red colored regions, that is the organic materials, these particles, few nano-sized particles are covered with organic materials. In fact, this is a chemically bonded on the surface. Because these particles, very new materials, which cannot be synthesized by liquid phase or gas phase method, these particles can be dispersed in any type of the solvent. If the organic molecules are attached, then we can disperse these particles into the organic solvent with very high concentrations. It is very unusual. Of course, if we combine the hydrophilic molecules on the surface, we can disperse it in water or in blood. We can apply this so-called nano ink, highly concentrated nanoparticles for the inkjet printing. Okay, we have succeeded in fabricating this kind of a very precise structures, materials, or even for the micro meters, the precisions of the devices, patterns, and so on. And also the we can make the nanomagnetic ink, and also we can make the transparent, the magnetic, the transparent film like this. And we can make the, we can control the refractive index of the film by introducing these particles into the plastic film polymers. And also, this is another example. High heat conductive materials can be, of course, in this case, that can be covered with the organic materials in the supercritical state to increase affinities between these particles with the polymers. We can increase the loading amount of this high heat conductive materials, in this case, the boron nitrides, in the hybrid materials. That leads to increase the heat conductivities of this polymer film. You can see the comparisons with metal. We can make the fluidic ceramics as well, even above the 80 volume percentage of the fillers. We can keep this the fluidities that can be introduced into these complicated structures, packaging materials. Okay. Well, around the 30 years ago, we invented this method in the Tohoku University, but this method was commercialized all over the world. Of course, this topic is a bit different from the COVID diagnosis issues, but some of the researchers are interested in the new materials, organic modified nanoparticles, including the medical field of the researchers. They use our particles and combine the antibody of the cancers onto this particle to monitor the position of the antibody, the cancer tumor. The one interesting example is that gadolinium vanadate doped with these kind of compounds. Of course, this is a luminescence materials, but at the same time, this can be the imaging probe for the X-ray and also the MRI. It means that this materials have the three functions at the same time. One of our collaborators, a colleague, especially the Professor Abe of Department of Agriculture, he found an interesting fungus which cannot be detected with a macrophage. In fact, when the particles, including our particles, are introduced into our body, the macrophage detects our particle and captured it. But this fungus cannot be detected by the macrophage. So that his idea was to use these surface molecules and cover our particles, okay, to have a kind of stealth functions. Also, sometimes we need to make a kind of a cluster of the nanoparticles. EPR effect that needs a control of a cluster size, and we can make this kind of the clusters made of the nanoparticles. We have some collaborators whose research is closely related to the COVID-19 diagnosis issues. I will show you some of the researches. Professor Yabu of AIMR, our institute, developed or succeeded in making this kind of Janus particles. One side, it has some antibody, and the other side, the luminescence materials. This is the kind of immunochromatography method. This chromatography has accommodated with the antibody. Of course, it captured the antigen, in our case, the coronavirus. If we have antibody Janus particle, it can be combined with the antigens, and we can monitor the luminescence. He has already collaborated with one company and try to make a new kind of detecting systems, as shown here. They said that they have the higher sensitivities compared to the conventional assays. Recently, we talked to each other to increase the sensitivities. One idea is to use our particles, luminescence particles. This is a new type of fusion research as well. One of my colleagues has launched a new venture company, ACRIP. They use a similar kind of method. Instead of the Janus particles, they use gold particles at the moment. They are now selling these devices already. Of course, this method can be, this was designed for the blood diseases, but he says that this can be used for the corona's, the diseases issues already. Also, sorry. This is the detections. We can see that the red colors, which is originated from the gold nanoparticles, but he needs the more higher intensities. So he approached to us to have the more strong luminescence particles, nanoparticles. Already, I mentioned that the key issue is the combination of particles and some biomolecules. Okay. Professor Seidl also touched a bit about the importance of this kind of particles, the luminescence particles, the indicators. But one of my colleagues, Professor Umetsu, found the new biomolecules. His approach is very interesting. Look at this, the right-hand side, the photos. Here he placed the different metals, and these molecules, right-hand side molecules, only detected, only attached on the gold substrate. Okay. These molecules cannot attach on the palladium, silver, or platinum. So selective affinity was found. Also, by changing these molecules, the structures, this left-hand side are the molecules, that can attach on the zinc oxide only. Okay. By controlling these structures, these molecules can attach only on the 0001 surface of the zinc oxide. It's very, very specific. Of course, these molecules can be the binding site against the nanoparticles, gold or our new luminescence particles, whatever. Okay. If this the binding site is combined with the antibody of the cancers, these molecules can attach on the gold in this case and can detect the cancer's tumor site, as you can see here. And also, these can be used for the immunochromatography, as I mentioned already. Of course, probably some of you may know that this may be able to use the ELISA detection method. This is a kind of a prototype detection method of the immunochromatography. In this the figures, it is so tiny, sorry, but red colored one is the antigen, and the Y signal is the symbol is for the antibody. Of course, if we mix these two together, it is combined together. But if the some binding site exists for this antibody to the particle, one idea is, of course, to use the Professor Umezu's binding site, or there are several of the methods to combine this the antibody to the magnetic materials. We can collect this particle, and afterward, we can attach another antibody. It means that this antigen is sandwiched with the two antibody, but this antibody has the orange colors one. In this case, this is an enzyme to break these luminescence materials to have some signals. But of course, this is a kind of the one of the method for the ELISAs. There are many methods, some similar type of ELISAs detection method. But what I want to say is that instead of using the enzyme, we may be able to use our luminescence particles for the detections. Our colleague, Professor Kawakami, he found a very interesting phenomena with the magnetic nanoparticles. He combined this magnetic particle, and of course, this is again the magnetite particle. This was combined with antigen. This conjugate materials is a concentrated antigens on the nanoparticles. He introduced this concentrated antigen to the mouse, and what was found? Of course, inside the body, the antibody should be produced. Let's compare with a conventional method. The conventional one, that is the blue color one. Very interestingly, he found more antibody against the normal, the conventional way of injections. He says that this method may be able to use for the a kind of vaccine, coronavirus. Okay. Today I introduced the very interesting the nanoparticles, which may be able to use for the diagnosis of the COVID-19. But we made a variety of the facilities to make the our particles continuously with a large amount. And also, as Professor Lel already introduced, we launched the new venture companies. In this company, we designed the best nanoparticles suitable for your applications, the best designed nanoparticles to you. We always welcome any type of collaborations. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Adschiri Sensei, thank you so much for this very broad show of your own research as well as your colleagues' research related to COVID-19. I think that was a very good introduction of the very high-level research conducted at Tohoku University, and of course also interesting at the end that you are also offering to work together on a more commercial basis through your startup. So thank you very much for that. Now, are there any questions from the audience to Professor Seidl and Mr. Köster and Professor Adschiri? I mean, you're the experts, so I hope that today's event gave you some possibility of looking into each other's world, and maybe there are going forward some opportunities to collaborate. Our function, we see our role a little bit like a nanoparticle or a little bit like a catalyzer to connect Japanese and German partners, be it companies or be it universities, to enable further joint research and communication. Professor Seidl, maybe you have some comment. I mean, you already expressed your interest in cooperating with Japanese partners.
Yeah, it was a very interesting talk. I really liked it, Professor Adschiri. And I think the main challenge is to bring these different fields of micro, nano, photonics, materials, but also the bioassay, bring this together. I don't know what's your opinion about the main challenges, but in my point of view, the point is the system integration. That's the reason why the most of these also commercialization approaches are not working yet. And the other colleague from Tokyo also mentioned the point of accuracy. Yeah? And of course, that's the point. You want at the end a reliable system with a high accuracy. So the system design, bringing all these different competences together, that's the challenge. And I think we can only face this by cooperations.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. I will show you one interesting story which I experienced in the University of Tokyo when I was a student. Mm-hmm. Well, one of my the senior students' research topic was the methodology of inventions. At that time, the junior students, what is this research topic? No, the methodology of inventions. If they exist, then everyone can be the inventor. But in fact, there is a research category for the methodology of inventions. He explained to me that the methodology is something like a mathematics. Sometimes multiplications, sometimes the summations, sometimes the transfer matrix or reverse matrix, and so on. He says that the most of the inventions of course, there are many inventions, but the majority of the inventions was made through the multiplications or the summation of the 2 or 3 different research fields or the ideas. I think for this kind of a COVID-19 issues, most of the people think that, oh, this is a research topic, the medical fields of the researchers. But I think that that is not true. Totally different research fields should combine together to make the new inventions. Today, I really impressed with the research in the Fraunhofer. I want to approach to you to make the new kind of the collaborative research with our supercritical the methodologies or with our biomedical fields of researchers together. Yeah, let's do together. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Actually, there's one question here to Professor Seidl. It's from Germany. It says at the University of Bielefeld, which is also in Nordrhein-Westfalen, they are currently doing research on a test which is apparently would take only 16 minutes. Have you heard of this research in Bielefeld? Or what is your, do you have any comment on this project?
Ja, in der Tat habe ich noch nicht von dem konkreten Projekt gehört.
Okay.
Bin ich auch offen, wenn da Kontakte sind. Wir haben andere Kooperationsprojekte auch mit Bielefeld.
In English, please.
Oh, sorry. I just switched.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we didn't hear, or I didn't hear the of the project in Bielefeld, but of course we are open. We have other projects in the field of AI with Bielefeld, but yeah, I've not heard about this.
Okay,
project.
very good. Herr Köster, do you have any other comments or suggestions?
No, I think it was a very interesting web talk. So thank you for inviting us. And I think our task is very similar to yours. So connecting those innovators to get some good experiences and new products. Yes, so I think it was perfect. So thank you.
Very good. I fully agree. I mean, we have actually had quite some experience already with startups since 2010. We brought a startup called Cyberdyne, created by Professor Sankei from Tsukuba University to Bochum. And they built this exoskeleton HAL, and we learned quite a lot through working with Cyberdyne. And we supported a company called QD Laser, which actually worked closely with the University Clinic of Essen. And we're currently working with a number of startups which are also looking at for new partners in the area of AI for medicine, but also for solutions with Parkinson Parkinson patients. And I think Professor Seidl, you are also familiar with Professor Dodel and Professor Sauerwein in Essen. So I think there are really a lot of opportunities, and we would like to really expand our relations with Tohoku University and also potential startups from your area. And I'm sure with the help of Mr. Köster and Dr. Köster and Professor Seidl, we will find new avenues. But for today, I would like to thank everyone, especially the speakers, for taking out so much time for today, and also all the participants. At this time, we still have, I see, I think 36 participants, but we were at about 80 or so in the beginning. And thank you so much. And please come again. As I said, our next web talk is at the end of August. In the meantime, here in Japan, we have the Obon holiday, and I hope you for tonight. Adschiri Sensei, I hope you have a nice bottle of Bordeaux wine, which you can enjoy. And Professor Seidl, I'm sorry you'll have to wait a little bit longer. Dr. Köster also. But anyhow, as they say, see you again, and thank you so much. I think I don't know if I have forgotten anything, but we will send you a thank you mail with the links about the presentations. And if there are any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us via mail or telephone or whatever. And thank you so much. Also, Yamaguchi Sensei from Tohoku University, thank you so much, and Narita-san and everyone. And have a nice weekend and enjoy. And we will be in contact with you. We will provide you with the materials and so on. But if you still have time, please stay on a little bit for the discussion. Just before you leave, I would like to point out that our next Fireplace WebTalk will be on 28th of August on Germany's hydrogen strategy.